The apartment had been silent for weeks, its door sealed shut against the world. Inside, the air hung heavy with decay, sunlight filtering through dirty windows to reveal a heartbreaking scene. A small dog lay motionless in the corner, her chain stretched taut, the metal collar digging into her emaciated neck. Her breathing was so shallow it was nearly imperceptible, her ribs protruding sharply beneath matted fur. The only signs of life were her eyes, two dark pools of suffering that followed every movement in the room. When the rescuers entered, their boots crunched on the bare concrete floor. There were no food bowls, no water dishes, just emptiness and the faint smell of urine. The dog didn't bark or growl at the intruders. She simply watched them approach, too weak to react, her body trembling with exhaustion. One rescuer knelt beside her, hands shaking as they examined the raw wounds around her neck, where the collar had bitten into flesh. The moment the chain clicked open, the dog collapsed completely, her legs giving out after weeks of constant tension. The rescuer cradled her limp body, shocked by how little she weighed, just skin and bones wrapped in patchy fur. Her heartbeat fluttered like a dying bird's, irregular and frighteningly faint. As they carried her through the doorway into sunlight for the first time in weeks, she squinted against the brightness, her dry nose twitching at unfamiliar outdoor scents. In the rescue vehicle, they wrapped her in soft blankets and offered drops of water from a syringe. At first, she didn't understand, turning her head away weakly. But when the liquid touched her tongue, instinct took over and she licked frantically at the plastic tip. The rescuers exchanged worried glances. Her dehydration was severe, her gums pale and sticky. Every minute counted now in the race to save her life. The animal hospital's fluorescent lights revealed the full extent of her suffering. The vet's hands moved carefully over her protruding spine, measuring the degree of muscle atrophy. "I can't believe she's alive," the vet murmured, shaking her head as she examined the dog's chart. Blood tests showed catastrophic organ stress, her body having consumed its own tissues to survive. The medical team worked quickly, inserting an IV line to deliver fluids and nutrients directly into her weakened system. Throughout the examination, the dog remained eerily still, her sunken eyes following the human's movements. When the vet pressed a stethoscope to her chest, there was no protest, no resistance, just quiet acceptance. The most heartbreaking discovery was her teeth. The worn edges suggested she'd been chewing on concrete or metal, desperately trying to satisfy some primal need to gnaw. The medical team exchanged grim looks. This level of suffering spoke of prolonged, deliberate neglect. On the third day, a miracle occurred. When a nurse entered the isolation ward with a bowl of specially formulated recovery food, the dog's nose actually twitched. Her ears, which had lain flat against her skull since arrival, perked up slightly at the smell. The nurse carefully placed the bowl within reach and held her breath. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, with tremendous effort, the dog lifted her head and dragged herself forward an inch. The first lick was tentative, as if she didn't trust this sudden abundance. Then, as the flavors registered, she began eating in earnest, her tail giving the faintest wag between bites. The nurse blinked back tears as she watched. This simple act of eating represented an enormous victory. Later that day, the dog managed to stand briefly on shaky legs before collapsing back onto her padded bed, exhausted but visibly more alert than before. Just when progress seemed steady, the nighttime episodes began. The veterinary staff would find her panting and trembling in her kennel, eyes wild with remembered fear. Sometimes she would press herself into the farthest corner, as if trying to escape some invisible threat. The worst nights, she would emit a high-pitched whine that sounded eerily human, a noise that sent chills down the spines of even the most experienced staff members. Behavioral specialists recommended creating a safe den-like space with blankets draped over part of her kennel. They introduced calming pheromones and soft classical music played at low volume. Slowly, the night terrors became less frequent. Though the shadows of her trauma never fully disappeared, the staff noticed she would still startle at sudden movements, especially if someone approached her from behind too quickly. Her first real walk was a humbling experience. Supported by a special harness, she managed 3 shaky steps before her legs gave out. The physical therapist patiently helped her up each time, rewarding every attempt with tiny bits of chicken. "She's relearning how to be a dog," the therapist explained to volunteers. The muscles in her hindquarters had atrophied severely, requiring weeks of careful rehabilitation to rebuild. The therapy pool became her favorite place. The warm water supported her frail body, while allowing her to exercise without joint stress. At first, she paddled uncertainly, but soon she was moving with growing confidence, her strokes becoming stronger each session. The staff cheered when she finally managed to climb out of the pool using the ramp without assistance, her fur dripping, but her posture proud. The introduction to other canines had to be handled carefully. After weeks of isolation, she'd forgotten how to interact with her own species. The first meeting was with a gentle senior Labrador who ignored her nervous sniffing. She observed the older dog's calm demeanor, slowly mirroring his relaxed body language. When he lay down and showed his belly, she actually approached and gave him a tentative lick on the nose. This breakthrough led to carefully supervised playdates with other balanced dogs. She learned to take turns with toys, to give appropriate warning signals when overwhelmed, and even to engage in brief bouts of play bowing. The staff noted how she would still occasionally flinch if another dog moved too quickly near her food, a lingering effect of her starvation period. Animal control officers combed through the abandoned apartment for clues about her past. Neighbors reported hearing occasional barks weeks earlier, but assumed the tenant would return. The investigation revealed previous animal welfare complaints at the address, though none recent enough to prevent this tragedy. Authorities tracked down the former owner, who offered vague excuses about personal problems before cutting off contact. Meanwhile, the rescue organization documented every aspect of her recovery. Her story began attracting media attention, shining a light on animal neglect laws in the region. Donations poured in from around the country, many from people moved by photos showing her transformation from skeletal survivor to hopeful patient. The rescue used these funds to establish a special program for severely abused animals in her honor. After 2 months in medical care, she was ready for a trial period in a foster home. Her chosen foster family had experience with traumatized animals and a quiet, predictable household. The first night in her new environment, she paced relentlessly, sniffing every corner before finally collapsing into exhausted sleep. The foster parents left lights on and soft music playing to ease her anxiety. Remarkably, by the 3rd day, she began showing small signs of relaxation, stretching out on her dog bed instead of curling tightly, taking treats gently from hands instead of snatching them. When the foster father sat on the floor to watch television, she surprised everyone by creeping forward to rest her head on his knee. It was the first voluntary, affectionate contact she'd initiated with a human since her rescue. The discovery of toys opened a new world for her. At first, she simply stared at the stuffed animals and rubber balls as if they were foreign objects. Then one day, a squeaky toy accidentally made noise when she stepped on it. Her reaction was priceless. She jumped back, then cautiously batted at it with her paw. When it squeaked again, her tail began to wag. This breakthrough led to daily play sessions. She particularly loved soft toys she could carry around proudly, though she remained gentle with them, never tearing or destroying like many dogs do. The foster family noticed she would often take her favorite plush duck to her bed at night, arranging it carefully beside her before sleeping. It was as if she'd adopted it as her own baby to protect. Mealtimes remained stressful long after her physical recovery. She would tremble as her bowl was prepared, then either gulp the food dangerously fast or pick at it nervously. The behaviorist recommended hand-feeding exercises to rebuild positive associations. Each meal became a training session, with the foster parents feeding her kibble piece by piece from their palms. Gradually, she learned to eat at a normal pace from a bowl again, though she would still glance up frequently as if checking that the food wouldn't disappear. The foster family maintained strict routines, same times, same places, to provide the security she desperately needed. After several weeks, they noticed she no longer guarded her bowl aggressively when approached, a significant milestone in her emotional healing. Her initial walks in the neighborhood were exercises in sensory overload. Every rustling leaf, passing car, or distant dog bark made her freeze in uncertainty. The foster parents used high-value treats to create positive associations, praising her calmly whenever she overcame a fear. They started with short, predictable routes, gradually expanding her world as her confidence grew. The day she first saw a squirrel was magical. Her ears perked up, her body tensed in that classic pointer stance, and for the first time, she seemed genuinely excited by something outside herself. Though she didn't chase, her muscles still weren't strong enough for that. Her entire demeanor radiated joyful alertness. From that day forward, wildlife spotting became her favorite walk activity. The introduction to the foster family's young nieces was carefully orchestrated. The children were instructed to sit quietly and let the dog approach them. At first, she kept her distance, observing the small humans warily from behind the foster mother's legs. But when one girl began softly tossing treats in her direction, curiosity overcame caution. By the end of the visit, she was allowing gentle pets, and even gave one child's hand a tentative lick. The foster parents noted how her body language softened around children compared to adults, perhaps because they were less intimidating in size. This observation would prove crucial when considering her eventual forever home requirements. Water had become familiar from her therapy sessions, but a real bath was a new challenge. The foster mother used a rubber mat in the tub for secure footing and warm, not hot, water. At first, she stood frozen, trembling slightly as the water streamed over her back. But when the foster mother began massaging the shampoo into her coat, something remarkable happened. She actually leaned into the touch. The blow dryer was another matter entirely. Its noise sent her scrambling for cover until the foster parents tried a revolutionary approach. They turned it on while feeding her chicken pieces from a distance, gradually moving closer over multiple sessions. Within a week, she would stand calmly for full grooming, her tail wagging lazily as the warm air fluffed her now glossy coat. Transportation had been traumatic since her initial rescue ride, so the foster family worked diligently to change that association. They started by simply sitting with her in the parked car, feeding treats and playing soft music. Then came very short drives around the block, always ending at exciting locations like the park. The breakthrough came when she voluntarily jumped into the car one morning, tail wagging, apparently having connected vehicles with fun outings. From that day forward, car rides became adventures rather than ordeals. She learned to settle on her special car bed, watching the world go by through safely cracked windows, her nose working overtime to process all the passing scents. The 4th of July presented an unexpected challenge: fireworks. Her foster family prepared carefully, creating a soundproofed safe space in an interior bathroom with white noise machines. They used calming supplements and remained home with her throughout the evening. When the first distant booms began, she tensed but didn't panic, looking to her humans for guidance. What happened next amazed them. Instead of hiding, she chose to stay near them on the couch, accepting gentle pets during the louder explosions. By midnight, she was actually sleeping through the occasional fireworks still echoing in the distance. This demonstrated remarkable resilience. Many dogs with her background develop lifelong noise phobias. Applications poured in after her story was featured on local news, but the rescue organization screened carefully. They sought someone home most of the day, with no other pets initially, and experience with traumatized animals. When retired teacher Martha applied, something clicked. Her calm demeanor, fenced yard, and willingness to continue training made her ideal. Their first meeting was arranged at the foster home. Martha sat quietly on the floor, letting the dog approach in her own time. Surprisingly, the dog walked right up and rested her head in Martha's lap, an unprecedented show of immediate trust. The foster family knew instantly this was the right match, though saying goodbye would break their hearts. Moving day was bittersweet. The dog seemed confused as her familiar toys and bed were packed up, whining softly when the foster family cried during goodbye cuddles. But when Martha opened her car door, the dog jumped in willingly, apparently understanding this was another new chapter in her extraordinary journey. At Martha's house, everything had been prepared. Identical food bowls, the same brand of bed, even familiar scented blankets from the foster home. Martha maintained all the routines the dog had come to rely on, helping ease the transition. By evening, the exhausted dog curled up at Martha's feet, sighing deeply as if finally realizing she was truly safe. Weeks passed in happy predictability. Morning cuddles in bed, leisurely breakfasts followed by sunbathing in the yard, afternoon training sessions using homemade liver treats. Martha kept a journal documenting every small achievement. The first time she played fetch, her first dog park visit, the day she finally stopped checking her empty food bowl repeatedly. Neighbors often remarked on the change in Martha since adopting. The once retired teacher now walked with purpose, her face lighting up when talking about her canine companion. The dog, in turn, blossomed under Martha's patient guidance, her personality shining brighter each day as the shadows of her past continued to fade. Their story gained unexpected attention when a local reporter did a follow-up piece. The before and after photos stunned readers. The skeletal creature from the apartment contrasted with the glossy, bright-eyed dog smiling beside Martha. Schools invited them to speak about resilience and kindness, where children would gasp seeing her scars but then cheer her triumphs. The rescue organization used her case to advocate for stronger animal welfare laws, with Martha testifying at city council meetings. Though the original owner faced minimal consequences, the resulting legislation would prevent similar cases through stricter penalties and better oversight. Her suffering had not been in vain. It was saving countless other animals. Martha's family worried when she announced plans to take the dog on a beach vacation. But meticulous preparation paid off. The dog adapted beautifully to hotel life, especially enjoying balcony sunbathing. At the beach, she was initially wary of waves but soon chased them playfully, digging in the sand with abandon. Photographs from that trip show a transformed creature, tongue lolling in happiness, tail a constant blur of motion, her body strong and muscular from months of good nutrition and exercise. Martha framed one particular shot where the dog raced along the shoreline at sunset, her silhouette perfectly capturing the joy of second chances. Recognizing her calm temperament with children, Martha pursued therapy dog certification. The evaluation was nerve-wracking, but the dog passed with flying colors, especially impressing judges with her gentle, take-it-or-leave-it attitude toward treats. Their first hospital visit moved Martha to tears, her once terrified rescue now confidently comforting sick children. At one oncology ward, a withdrawn little girl spoke for the first time in days when the dog rested her head on the hospital bed. The medical staff marveled as the child petted the soft fur, whispering secrets into attentive ears. In these moments, all the pain of her past became worth it. She was now a healer herself. Not every day was perfect. When a plumbing mishap flooded Martha's bathroom, the sound of rushing water triggered old fears. The dog panicked, scrambling to hide in her crate and refusing to come out for hours. Martha sat nearby reading aloud in a calm voice, letting her recover at her own pace. This incident reminded them both that healing isn't linear. Martha adjusted their routine to include more confidence-building exercises, and they resumed occasional sessions with their original behaviorist. The dog's resilience shone through as she bounced back. On the estimated anniversary of her rescue, They used her gotcha day as a birthday. Martha threw a small party. Dog-friendly cupcakes were served, and her favorite toys were wrapped as presents. The dog seemed to understand this was special, prancing around with a party hat strapped to her collar, tolerated for exactly 3 minutes before being removed. The guest of honor received scratches from all her human friends before settling contentedly beside Martha, watching the festivities with calm amusement. That night, as Martha brushed her before bed, she reflected on how far they'd come together, from that terrible first day to this moment of pure happiness. As Martha aged, their relationship subtly shifted. The once clingy rescue dog began checking on Martha more frequently, resting her head on Martha's knee during longer sitting periods. When Martha forgot her medication once, the dog actually brought the pill bottle to her, though whether this was trained behavior or remarkable intuition remained debatable. Their walks became slower but no less joyful, with more benches stops to admire gardens or chat with neighbors. The dog adjusted her pace to match Martha's, just as Martha had once adjusted her life to meet the dog's needs. Their bond had come full circle, two souls who had saved each other in different ways. When Martha suffered a minor fall, the dog's response astonished paramedics. She stayed pressed against Martha's side, licking her hand continuously until help arrived, then calmly moved aside for the EMTs. At the hospital, where she was allowed thanks to her therapy credentials, she remained perfectly behaved at the foot of Martha's bed. This incident proved what Martha had long known. Her rescue dog had become her guardian angel. Doctors credited the dog's presence with keeping Martha calm during treatment, and the pair became local media darlings yet again, their story inspiring older adults to consider senior pet adoption. As arthritis began slowing the aging dog, Martha started bringing a lively puppy into their home. Skeptics worried this might stress the older dog, but she surprised everyone by taking on a mentoring role. She corrected the puppy gently when needed, shared her bed after establishing boundaries, and even let the youngster steal toys she'd long ignored. Watching them play, the puppy bouncing with energy, the elder dog engaging in short bursts before retiring to her cushion, Martha smiled through tears. Her once broken rescue was now teaching another generation how to be loved, completing the circle of healing in the most beautiful way possible. Slow walks became shuffles, then mostly porch sitting with sunny naps. Martha adapted their home with ramps and orthopedic beds, determined to keep her companion comfortable. The dog's muzzle grew white, her steps more measured, but her eyes remained bright with affection. Mealtimes were still met with enthusiasm, though portions were smaller and more frequent now. Their routine simplified but lost none of its sweetness. Quiet mornings with the newspaper, the dog still helping by sitting on sections Martha wanted to read. Afternoon visits from neighborhood children who brought homemade dog treats. Evenings spent watching nature documentaries together on the couch. When the time came, Martha made the hardest decision with the same selflessness she'd shown since their first meeting. The veterinary team came to their home, where the dog rested on her favorite blanket, surrounded by familiar smells and Martha's loving arms. As the sedation took effect, Martha whispered stories of their adventures together, reminding her friend of beaches explored, children comforted, and countless quiet moments of perfect understanding. Her passing was peaceful, her body finally at rest after a life that had begun in unimaginable hardship but ended surrounded by boundless love. The puppy, now grown, sniffed her gently before resting its head on Martha's knee, a new chapter beginning even as another closed. Months later, a memorial bench was installed at their favorite park, engraved with the dog's name and the words, "From broken to healer." Martha often sat there with the younger dog, greeting passers-by who remembered her famous companion. School children still asked about the brave dog who taught them compassion, and Martha's eyes would light up as she shared stories. The rescue organization established a permanent fund in her name, specializing in severe neglect cases. Each animal saved was another testament to her enduring spirit. And on quiet evenings, when the wind rustled through the trees near her bench, it almost sounded like the contented sigh of a dog who had known both the worst and best of humanity, and had chosen, against all odds, to believe in the good.